Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here today at Southborough Honors Veterans 2019 Veterans Day observance. For most of you, you know who I am, Steve Weinert. I'm the commander of the VFW, and with me is my American Legion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Calanda. Dan is also one of your selectmen here in town, as well as a Army reservist in the J Corps. We thank you all for being here and joining us, and this is a special day for us veterans, so for you to come out and honor us, it means a lot. If there are veterans in the crowd, would you please, I know I just met a bubblehead, and that's a good term between us Navy guys. That's a good term. It's okay. He's a submarine sailor. Sir, please come sit with us. And if there's any other veterans out there, please come and sit. You know, just like any branch, Marines, we call the Marines jarheads, they call us squids. You know, it's all inter-service rivalry. We get on each other, but when it comes to mean business, we're all brothers and sisters. Today marks the 101st anniversary of the signing of the armistice, ending the war to end all wars. World War I. We gather here today to pay tribute to all who have served and who continue to serve our great nation. Whether in peace or time of war, we honor our veterans for their dedication, patriotism, and courage in wearing the uniform of the Armed Forces of the United States as our nation strives to maintain peace. It is up to all of us to ensure that those who gave the ultimate sacrifice are never forgotten. As we look at the All Wars Memorial, remember these 12 servicemen who gave the ultimate sacrifice in World War I, World War II, and Vietnam. We welcome the members of the VFW Post 3276, the American Legion Post 161. I'd like to acknowledge as well Southborough Board of Selectmen Dan Shea, who is with us. Brian Shea, who is with us. Lisa Brascio, Marty Healy, thank you for being here. And as well as Lieutenant Colonel Dan Calanda. We always always pleased to have with us State Representative Carolyn Dykmer. Carolyn is with us for every Memorial Day and every Veterans Day. She was on the Armed Services Committee of Veterans Affairs for the state, and while she's no longer on that committee, she still is 100% behind the veterans. Thank you to the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, all the Scout troops that are with us. It's great that your troop leaders bring you here so you acknowledge what Veterans Day is. It's not just a day that you have off from school. There's true meaning behind it. And we appreciate the Scout leaders for showing your young troops. We have here the Camerata Singers on my left. You went from 2 to 3, so that's good. And trumpet players who will do taps for us today, Sarah Cassidy and Julie Howe. And despite all the construction, as you can tell, there's been quite a bit of work done around this memorial. And up to about a week ago, a few days ago, this looked like a war zone. I mean, there was debris, there's machines and everything. So I certainly extend my appreciation to Karen Galligan, the DPW, for getting on and connecting with the DOT. As I understand it, DOT, the Fanner family was up here dressing up the memorial yesterday, and Mass DOT stopped by. So they got the word. So great job all the way through. I also want to acknowledge on my right-hand side the Wilson family. As you all may know, our dear friend John Wilson passed away earlier this year, the former Legion commander. Danny will share some thoughts on that a little bit later. I ask Chris Robbins to please come forward and lead us in the prayer.
Oh God, we bow our heads in thankfulness for the sacrifices made by our veterans in over 243 years of liberty. We thank you for the blessings and loving understanding of all families and friends of our veterans who have also sacrificed, while their loved ones serve this nation in search of a better and more peaceful world. We pray to give all our military serving around the world the courage and strength to perform the duties and responsibilities that are required of them. We thank them for their sacrifices as they protect our freedoms. For our great nation, grant us, O God, the courage to live with the family of nations around the world, that there will be an enduring peace. Grant us the patience to plan with our fellow men and women throughout the world to resolve our differences by peaceful means. Amen.
Thank you, Major. It's now my privilege to welcome to the podium to share some words State Representative Carolyn Dykema.
Good morning, Southborough. It's always such a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you on Veterans Day morning, and I want to thank Mr. Wynot and Colonel Kalenda, as well as everyone who's here, all the Board of Selectmen, and as well as the Fanef family. I know the Fanefs always lovingly maintain this spot, so it's in good shape and looking pristine when we come to honor our veterans today. And I also, of course, want to recognize the Wilson family. Your husband and father is very much in spirit with us here today. He was the MC and for this event for a very long time, and was very much on my mind as I was headed here this morning, so thoughts are with you all. This year, in addition to the anniversary that Mr. Wynot mentioned, we recognize the 75th anniversary of D-Day, the day that American and Allied troops stormed Omaha and Utah beaches in Normandy, France, and turned the tide of the Second World War. As we know, the acts of courage showed by the soldiers who fought at that time ensured that democracy could continue to thrive across the globe and prevented the advance of fascism. In fighting for this noble cause, many didn't survive. The Normandy American Cemetery is the resting place for 9,387 Americans, most of whom gave their lives during the landing operations and the establishment of the beachhead. The names of 1,557 soldiers are inscribed on tablets in the cemetery's Garden of the Missing. A father and son are buried there together, and in 33 instances, 2 brothers are buried side by side. There are also many of these tremendous heroes who did come home, and a few are still with us today, and I want to recognize especially all of our World War II veterans who are joining us here today. We pay a special tribute to them. We also thank those who served on the front lines at the tip of the spear and those who played crucial supporting roles, including 350,000 women who joined the armed services through the Women's Army Corps. The lessons these veterans can teach us are on our mind today, I think all of us. Certainly the veterans of the greatest generation don't speak with one voice, but I suspect that there's one thing that they would all agree on, and that's when you're in the trenches and when you're on Omaha Beach defending American ideals and freedoms, there's only one thing that matters, and that's that you are an American and that you stand on the side of what is good and right and just. We celebrate this unity under our flag today alongside the service of all those who defend her, who have in the past, and who continue to. In our hearts, we know, as did the heroes that stormed the beaches and stood in the trenches at Normandy, and all of those who have served before and since, that when the going gets tough, Americans stand together. When you're in the trenches defending against an uncertain future, Americans know that it's not our faith, our political affiliation, our color, or our gender that matter. It's the passion for our common values and principles. And that is certainly a lesson from our veterans that we can all take to heart here today. To all of our veterans and our families, to all of those who never came home, and for those certainly that still grieve, we thank you from the heart for your service and your sacrifice. May God bless you all, and may God bless these United States of America.
Thank you, Carolyn. Once again, you never fail to throw some wisdom out to us. We all need that reminder. And we'll ask Lieutenant Colonel Dan Calanda, Army Reserve, as I mentioned, JAG Corps, as well as a member of the Board of Selectmen, and now the Commander of the American Legion, to step forward.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning, everyone. So, when I look around, I am amazed that we have a lot of older folks in uniform. All right, our veterans. We also have so many of our younger residents in uniform today. Scouts have done so much for the town of Southborough. Scouting has done so much for our veterans, and there have been a lot of Eagle Scout projects that have honored our veterans, and I know that there are some others that are in the works right now. And just earlier today at the community house, while we were getting ready, Southborough Pac 1, right here in front, all right, joined all the veterans and provided some wonderful gifts and some crafts and some treats that they had made for us. So I want to thank all of the scouts. Were the scouts not here today, the crowd would be half at best. So thank you so much for our scouts. As I shared with you this past Memorial Day, the only reason I am standing here today is because our friend and fellow veteran, Lieutenant Colonel John Wilson, is no longer with us. John passed away this past February. He lived near here his entire life in the town of Southborough, just a block from where we stand today. John was our American Legion commander, our town moderator for many years, and also loved the game of golf. Yesterday, we unveiled a new sign at the public safety facility and golf course, appropriately named John Wilson Drive. John served as an officer in the U.S. Army's elite 101st Airborne Division and was awarded the Bronze Star for his service in Vietnam. After active duty, he joined the Massachusetts National Guard, retiring in 1992 as a lieutenant colonel, a total of 26 years of service to our country. Today, we honor our friend John and all of those who volunteered to serve our great nation by wearing the uniform in its time of need. Thank you, Colonel Wilson.
John left a big hole and big shoes to fill. I just hope in the coming years that myself and Lieutenant Colonel Calanda combined can do what John did in the time that he was with us. And I would like to ask Board of Selectmen member Lisa Brascio to come forward.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome on this somewhat beautiful day. It's not snowing, so that's always a plus. I'd like to thank Commander Calenda, Commander Wynot, and of course, in spirit and in heart, Commander Wilson, for allowing us to celebrate your day with you. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I am honored to extend our gratitude to all veterans, young and old, for your selfless service to make our nation great and to give us the freedoms that we enjoy today. I thought a lot about how I wanted to honor you today. And I remembered how often I wished I had gotten the opportunity to hear the story of one who gave so much. So today I'm going to share the story of a true American hero with you. World War II veteran Arthur Butler. That's his name, and he sits to my right. He's 98 years young, always has a smile on his face for everyone he meets, is a true gentleman and a charming gentleman, I will add. A friend to many, and I feel blessed to have spent the time with him in putting these words together today. He was born in January of 1921 and lived most of his life in Framingham, though Southborough had the pleasure of being his retirement community for the last 28 years. He attended Northeastern University in 1938, deferred his military obligation until he graduated in 1943 with a degree in business administration. He soon left after graduation in July for 22 weeks of basic training in Texas, and then spent a year at Fort Ord in California, which he enjoyed as it was on Monterey Bay. In 1945, he went to Okinawa until it ended. He was wounded and received the Bronze Star. From there, he went to Korea until he came home in March of 1946. He received his discharge from Devens. I asked him, what did he want you to know about his time in the service? He said it was good and bad, and the 3 months of combat was not fun. He's a dedicated man. He worked at Waltham Savings Bank for 40 years. He ran the Savings Bank Life Insurance and Mortgage Department. He owned a steam locomotive. Railroading is a hobby, and he's still a member of a club in Holliston. He enjoyed gardening as well. Mr. Butler is very active at the Senior Center. He's a member of the Dull Men's Group, which I can assure you is not dull by any means. The best part of the Senior Center for him is meeting people and neighbors. Everyone had nothing but the kindest of words to share about him and how much they enjoyed spending time with him when he is at the Senior Center. I asked him the best part of Southborough, and his response is so true for all of us here today and 28 years later for him. Good neighbors and a nice country town. A sign of a life well lived is the legacy that we leave behind, and Mr. Butler continues every day to bring kindness and inspiration to those who have the pleasure of crossing his path. I ask you to please show this amazing man our appreciation for all he has done for our town and country with a round of applause. Thank you. I will end with these final thoughts. Veterans Day is a time to reflect on all the people throughout our history that were brave enough to stand up, raise their hand, and take an oath to protect our country at whatever the cost, personal cost. While not all may have faced wartime or been actively deployed, they were willing to. Honoring their time away from family, friends, and altering their lives is something we will always be thankful for. The sacrifices you and your families have made over the years to keep our freedom intact has certainly not always been free. You have helped shape our nation, protect our rights, our Constitution, and most importantly, kept our families safe. And we are so honored to share with you today our Southborough community's thanks for your dedication and patriotism. God bless Southborough and our hometown heroes who have served and continue to serve today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. During World War I, Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae a Canadian who was initially a doctor, wrote a poem while sitting upon a medical field ambulance honoring the death of a close friend, Alexis Helmer, who had been killed at the Second Battle of Ypres, which is in Belgium. The poppies, which grew in great numbers around the battlefields and cemeteries in that area, were the central feature of this poem, which was written on May 3rd, 1915, and initially published in the magazine December 8th, 1915. While serving as commanding officer of a Canadian General Hospital in Boulogne, France, Lieutenant Colonel McCrae died of pneumonia, January 28th, 1918. Usually we have a longtime resident, Ray Minucci, Korean War veteran Ray Minucci, recite this poem. He's done it for so many years from knowledge. Ray's not with us today, so I'll ask fellow VFW member Paul LeDuc to step forward and recite this most famous poem, In Flanders Fields.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, sacrifice heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders field. Take up your quarrel with the foe, to you from failings hands we throw. The torch we be yours to hold it high, if we break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field, row on row.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, sir. I know I threw that curve on you first thing this morning, but as a true Army man, you will adapt, overcome, and improvise. I'll ask the Algonquin Regional High School Camerata Singers to perform for us.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the valleys to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountain majesties, over the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with
appreciate it. We've been doing this for a few years now, and it was a nice addition to the program. So thank you so much for being here today. As we come together to honor and recognize the men and women in uniform of the Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, and Air Force who serve today and to all that have worn the uniform of our nation, I'll now ask West Point graduate, fellow Vietnam veteran, Colonel William Jackman. I should know better. It's been enough years, I should know his name. Colonel Jackman, please step forward to read the names of those veterans from Southborough who have passed away over the past year. Sir.
Thanks, Steve. Ralph T. McGrath Jr., Marlborough, Massachusetts, Korea, Air Force. Donald James Croati, Southborough, Massachusetts, Korea, Coast Guard. John H. Wilson, Southborough, Massachusetts, Vietnam, Army. Sherman Victor Olson, Southborough, Massachusetts, Korea, Army. Richard Peter Lavoie, Gulfstream, Florida, peacetime, Army. Stephen Charles Jones, Peyton, Colorado, peacetime, Navy. Charles D. Jones, Southborough, Massachusetts, World War II, Army. Sarkis J. Hakopian, Southborough, Massachusetts, World War II, Army. John R. Sudum, Jr., South Kingston, Rhode Island, World War II, Navy. Bradford D. Nickerson, Southborough, Massachusetts, Korea, Navy. David Adams Napton, Needham, Massachusetts, World War II, Army. Roger B. Rosenquist, Southborough, Massachusetts, Korea, Army. Reginald O. Mabey, Marlborough, Massachusetts, World War II, Army. Napoleon R. Pete DePina, Southborough, Massachusetts, Korea, Army. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you, Colonel Jackman. On the granite monument behind me, as I mentioned earlier, the names of those from Southborough who served in World War I, World War II, in Vietnam, and the global war on terrorism. Last November, we had the honor, through an effort led by that name again, Colonel John Wilson, to add the men and women who have, from Southborough, who have served in the global war on terrorism. They are now on the back of this wall. In the center section are those names of the 12 who gave the ultimate sacrifice. In the words of poet Lawrence Binion, they shall not grow old as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them down, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Leo Bagley, World War I. Charles Davis, World War II. Harold E. Fay, World War II. Raymond Gould, World War II. Joseph P. Janiak, World War II. John McNeil, World War II. Robert Renault, World War II. Henry G. Stevens, World War II. And Hal Very, World War II. As well as Robert R. Foley, Vietnam. As many of you may know who have attended these services before, today marks the 51st anniversary of Bob Foley's death in Vietnam. Bob was on a patrol boat in the Cuviet River in the Quang Tri province when it hit a mine, and Bob and his 3 crewmen were killed. Once again, to my right, I'd like to recognize Bob's brother Jim and his wife Leslie, who are here at every Veterans and Memorial Day observance. Jim, Leslie, thank you once again for being here and your sacrifice. Remember these men and vow never to forget. Never to forget. I know there's a lot of things going on in this country now, but one thing we cannot forget is our veterans, those who serve today, who are serving beneath the waves and in the skies across this world. They've picked up the watch. They've picked up the torch from us old guys. And some young guys, too. Sergeant at Arms, call the troops to attention. Firing squad. Present arms. Order. Arms. That concludes our Veterans Day observance for this year. Again, on behalf of Dan Calander and the rest of the veterans, thank you so much for being with us today. Have a great day, and once again, never forget. Thank you very much.